What was the core insight that made you believe that data layer was actually executable?
We realized that the primary use case for our product was actually to trade. Either we could expand into new areas to offer on-chain analytics for other purposes, or we could actually just help serve our investors better. And so we decided to go vertical on-chain investors and traders. Crypto to me has always been about making sure that more people have access to financial markets and assets they can invest in. If you give people access to markets, but you don't give them great tools, they might cause themselves a lot of pain. The mission of our company is to surface the signal and create winners. And right now we're spending a lot of time to make sure that we are indeed creating winners.
When an AI agent acts on-chain signals, it's competing with the very wallets it's watching. How do you prevent the strategy from eating its own lunch as it scales?
Yeah, I mean, my view has always been that
Hi friends, I'm CCN. Thank you for joining today's chat with Svanevik, CEO of Nansen, a blockchain analytics platform specializing in on-chain data, wallet labeling, and crypto intelligence. Thank you for joining us, Alex, today.
Hey, Giuseppe, good to be here.
So let's start this chat with the CEO of Nansen. Nansen has spent years labeling wallets and mapping on-chain behavior. What was the core insight that made you believe that data layer was actually executable?
First of all, we spent a lot of time trying to make sure that investors and traders could figure out what was happening on chain. We've spent the last 6 years building an analytics platform to make sure that traders and investors can win. In terms of the product strategy, we realized that the primary use case for our product was actually to trade. And so we thought, either we could expand into new areas to offer on-chain analytics for other purposes, or we could actually just help serve our investors better, or use the core segment of investors. And so we decided to go vertical on-chain investors and traders. We added staking almost 2 years ago, so people could stake with us. We are now one of the top staking providers in the world. And then later on, we've added trading. So people can trade on Solana and on Base through the Nansen user interface. So it was really just a function of that was kind of the primary use case that our users used Nansen for. And we wanted to service them better.
Most trading infrastructure built on proprietary data is historically lived behind closed doors at hedge funds. What breaks when you democratize access to it?
Yeah, so it's pretty interesting, and I think that's true, that in traditional finance, that's generally how it works. Crypto to me has always been about making sure that more people have access to financial markets and assets they can invest in. So if you give people access to markets, but you don't give them great tools, they might cause themselves a lot of pain. And so our philosophy has always been that we want to build a really great product for investors to essentially do better. And like the mission of our company is to surface the signal and create winners. And right now we're spending a lot of time to make sure that we are indeed creating winners. And so sometimes people ask me, why don't you just invest your own funds into the signals and the analytics that we have in the product? But if you add up all the capital from all our users, it actually makes more sense for us to instead offer a really great platform that they can act on. And so I just think this is kind of the way the world is headed. And I think with AI, frankly, it's going to accelerate because a lot of the research capabilities that previously were only accessible to hedge funds with 100 PhDs, a lot of those research capabilities are now becoming much more widely accessible to normal people. And we want to be on that we want to be at the right side of history and make sure that we're pushing that forward.
Let's talk about artificial intelligence because it's also another relevant matter in this industry. When an AI agent acts on-chain signals, it's competing with the very wallets it's watching. How do you prevent the strategy from eating its own lunch as it scales?
Yeah, I mean, my view has always been that crypto has so many corners that you can create enough room for either individuals or trading agents to do really well and generate alpha. And so we do have a lot of people who use Nansen to track what the smart money is doing. But the interesting thing is that people are interested in different types of smart money. So not everyone follows the exact same set of wallets. And so when you start going into trading agent territory, my view is that you'll have such a wide variety of different trading agents that I don't think you're going to have kind of every trading agent operating the exact same strategy. That seems extremely unlikely to me. And anyone who's used AI will acknowledge that even if you ask the same question to the same model, even, you'll get different answers every time. And so I think there's a strong enough element of unpredictability with agents that is naturally going to cause them to do different things. And so my guess is that we will see, we'll first get to thousands, tens of thousands of trading agents. Maybe by the end of this year, we'll get to millions of trading agents that are spawned, and eventually get to billions of trading agents. And I think these are going to be occupying very different corners of crypto. And if you add to that the fact that you're going to have so many different types of assets that live on chain, whether it's obviously crypto tokens that most of us are trading, you also have prediction markets, you have tokenized stocks, you have stablecoins, you have tokenized money markets, and so on and so forth. So as you add to the universe of on-chain assets, you also add to the combinatorics of how many different types of trading agents you could get. So my view is that you're going to have like billions of trading agents doing widely different things, and I'm excited to see that play out in the next months and years.
Execution quality on chain is very different problem than in TradFi as MEV, gas wars, liquidity fragmentation. How does the agent navigate that layer? How much alpha gets lost between signal and fill?
Yeah, that's a good question. We've spent a lot of time making sure that our agents and the agent that you interface with, if you use our mobile app, for example, you can download that by searching for Nansen AI on the Play Store or on the App Store. We spent a lot of time making sure that that knows how to interface with the execution layer. And you're right that this is a pretty complex field. And if you want to make sure that it can actually execute across multiple different chains as well, it gets pretty hard pretty quickly. Like one thing is you have to make sure that you can, there's even basic things like making sure you have the right token, right? If you say, hey, go and buy Pengu, how do you know that you're buying the right Pengu token? So that's like a very basic thing that you have to figure out in the UX. You have to make sure that it knows how to execute it properly, that it can find the best possible price across a range of dexes, maybe which chain it should execute it on. And then you get to things like limit orders and bridging across chains. If you say, hey, I want to swap from Pengu to the Lido token, which maybe exists on a different chain, it gets very complex pretty fast. And so what we've decided to do is definitely not build all of this stuff in-house. We've decided to partner with the strongest component providers, whether it's on the embedded wallet layer where we use Privy, or it's at the DEX aggregation layer where we partner with players like Li.Fi, OKX, and Jupiter, to name a few. And so we want to make sure that we are basically only doing the things that we can uniquely do really well, which is in the interaction between the agent and on-chain, but all of the actual plumbing when it comes to those matters, whether it's MEV or getting the best price execution, making sure that you have a safe wallet system and so on and so forth. We want to make sure that these other players are handling those bits.
One of the classic tensions in systematic trading is overfitting to historical behavior. How does your model stay robust against that kind of adversarial drift?
Yeah, this is another good question. Right now, we're doing a lot of experiments in what we internally call the Nansen Gym, which is where trading agents go to get better. And we run experiments with a wide range of models, both proprietary models, but also open source models like Quen 3.6, 27B, or Kimi K2.6, and a lot of these open source models that your listeners might be familiar with if they're into AI. And then we run different strategies, and then we run all of those combinations with our tools, of course, with the Nansen data. And then we measure how much alpha these generate over BTC. We also have something that, again, internally we refer to as the coach, which basically reviews the performance on a backtesting run of an agent, and then it suggests what it should do differently to get even better results. And that's when you get into potential issues like overfitting, right? So at the end of the day, you have to run these agents in an actual online environment where you can judge them on whether they're actually generating profits, not just in a backtesting offline environment, but also in an online environment. So when we launch the trading agent platform that we have in the works right now later this year, you'll be able to both do the backtesting and run the coach, as well as run these agents in paper trading mode. So you can actually get an idea of whether the backtesting results are going to reflect what you'll see from the agent in real life. And once you've been running it in paper trading mode, you can choose to deposit funds into it, with your actual real money. So overfitting is a real problem. You have to make sure that you don't go straight from an overfitted results to depositing lots of money into an agent. You need to make sure that you have that online evaluation after the backtesting as well.
If thousands of users are running agents trained on the same underlying wallet data, does that compress alpha or simply relocate it? And how quickly do you think that dynamic plays out?
Yeah, it goes back to what I said earlier. I think the world we will live in a couple of years is one where you have billions of trading agents. But I think due to all the inputs that you will be able to create for agents and also the configurations you'll be able to create in terms of the strategy parameters and the input that you set, as well as the unpredictable nature of LLMs and different models. I think if you take all of those things combined, you will see a very large variety in how these agents trade. And so my view remains that I think these trading agents might actually be even more. They might have even more diversity in the sense that they trade differently from each other than what humans do. Like we are all familiar with kind of the human, the human herd-like behavior. If you trade meme coins, if you trade, basically anything in crypto, you have a lot of herd-like behavior. And so I don't think it's obvious that trading agents that probably will execute in a more rational and cold manner, but they do have these unpredictable aspects to them, and they have all the different inputs. I don't think it's likely that they're going to be more herd-like than humans. I think humans are probably going to be more like sheep than trading agents will be.
We know that information in traditional finance took decades to get efficiently priced. The systematic strategies proliferated. Do you think that on-chain markets will price information faster, slower, or differently?
Well, it's going to be differently for sure, because historically, if you wanted to do quantitative trading, which has been going on obviously in traditional finance and in crypto for a long time, you mostly create somewhat deterministic system. There are some exceptions to that. Of course, there's a lot of use of machine learning and so on. But I think what's new now is that you have genuine inference going on, which is more unpredictable. So what I think is going to happen is that the algorithmic trading that's been happening in traditional finance and to some extent in crypto has been very focused on extremely low latency, but it's actually not super sophisticated, and it's a relatively narrow set of strategies that you will have run. Whereas with LLMs, what I think is going to happen is these LLMs are going to be able to consume a lot more information and much richer information. And so once again, that just means that the types of input that it can take is going to be much wider. It's going to be a much wider set of types of inputs. And so once again, that generates different behaviors. So I think what if I would simplify it, I would say latency maybe will become a little bit less important, but the richness and variety in the type of input that is going to be consumed is going to be more important. And even if you think about markets like prediction markets are really interesting because on the one hand, you could trade them, but on the other hand, you could also use prediction markets as an information source. And increasingly, the more liquid prediction markets get, the more reliable these data points become for other inputs, right? So you can imagine if you're trading Bitcoin or you're trading any of the major crypto assets, you'd probably want to consume certain macro prediction markets to help you set prices and make predictions. So my guess is that it's going to be more focused on rich and a large variety of data sources and maybe a little bit less focus on latency. Although over time, of course, you're probably going to have both super low latency and super rich inputs.
Remaining on the same topic of trading, a meaningful differentiator that you're offering is full visibility into the underlying data. But we know that most users won't interrogate the data; they'll just trust the output. How do you think about the responsibility that creates, especially when the market is volatile or, for example, there is the black swan period?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, obviously, when you are investing in trading, you take risk and you take risk on multiple different layers. And I want to be very clear that, of course, we do our very best to make sure that everything we provide in terms of information is accurate. You can never guarantee it, right? And for a variety of reasons, there might be errors, issues in the data, and so on. Although I think generally speaking, we probably take quality assurance a lot more seriously than many other folks in our industry when it comes to the information we provide. So I think generally, there's no crying in the casino. That is like the mindset. If you trade in crypto, you need to understand that the responsibility always lies with you as the investor. But at the same time, of course, our incentives are aligned with the end user in the sense that when our users do well, we do well as a platform. The last thing we want is for our users to lose money trading because it's less likely that they will come back and use our product. And so I think the incentives in that sense are very well aligned. Like what we want, generally speaking, is that our users grow their portfolios because we think that's going to make them come back and keep using our product and maybe using it even more. So I do think it's important, but I think we should be honest about the responsibility at the end of the day lying with the investors themselves who knowingly take risk when they put money into crypto.
And regarding this, as we know that on-chain agents are growing rapidly, it will be not a war in trading between AI agents and AI agents. I mean, who's going to win? And this is better or worse for humans?
Yeah, it's almost like if you think about the military as well, like if you have two countries go to war, at some point they're just going to be sending drones that fight with each other, right? And then when you get to that point, you might ask like, hey, why don't we just play a video game? Like this doesn't make any sense. We're just destroying machines amongst each other. But at the same time, I think it's really like at the end of the day, it's still the human that is accountable and makes decisions. But what you're doing is you're delegating the execution to another agent. And so when agents trade against each other on the market, it just means that, you have delegated your strategic intent to another agent that executes. But at the end of the day, it's still your intent, right? This is assuming that most people are not going to only tell their agent, hey, go and make me money. I don't care how you do it. Which, by the way, could be that that's how many people prefer to use agents. But my guess is that investors are going to say things like, hey, I am really bullish on Korean semiconductor supply chain stocks. Like, let's go and trade those and go out and do some research on them, find the ones that might be underpriced and so on. That's a strategic intent. And then there's going to be someone on the other side who maybe has another thesis that is the inverse of that, and then is basically selling the stocks that my agent is buying. So it's really still humans trading as humans. It's just through one proxy of delegation at the end of the day. And if you take an even bigger step backwards, like we have to also acknowledge that markets are, at the end of the day, resource allocation. That's the job of markets in society. And so humans who have some kind of intent, at the end of the day, what you're doing is you're allocating resources through a kind of convoluted process. But it's an interesting question on like whether agents will make us better resource allocators in society. And once again, my speculation is if you compare with today's retail investor, I would not be surprised if agents in the near future are going to be better resource allocators than humans.
Yeah, that's a good point, especially with the retailers. Last question for you. Let's make a prediction in 10 years from now. Where does the actual edge in crypto trading lie? I mean, data, models, execution layer, or something that we haven't named yet.
I mean, honestly, the edge will probably always lie in the contrarian view. So if you have a thesis that goes against what most people believe, that is going to be your edge, assuming that belief is true, of course, right? So I think 20 years from now, the way you can beat the market would probably be to have contrarian views and not just doing what everyone else is doing. I think it's also likely that, I mean, 20 years is very hard to predict. It's such a long time away. Even like 20 months is hard at this rate of change in AI. But it's also not unlikely that access to information will be an edge, which is also the same today, right? So in that sense, I think a lot of the foundation is going to remain the same. You know, it's still about having the courage to have a contrarian view on a thesis. It's about having access to information that is not easily accessible. And at the end of the day, it's about using the right tools and products to implement, you know, this thesis that you have based on some unique data. So I actually think like a lot of the pillars are going to remain the same. It might look different, but from an investing point of view, I think it's actually largely maybe going to be the same.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your insights, Alex. Friends of CCN, this was Alex Svanevik, the CEO of Nansen, and thank you a lot. Thank you again.
Thanks, Giuseppe.